Good morning and welcome to the trade setup right here on BloombergQuint Live. I'm Niraj Shah. It's a day well poised for large cap action, and I'll tell you why when I get to stocks. But first, the index setup and the mood setup around the world. So the risk on mood is definitely there. Bring up the US markets first. And by the way, you just need to look at the stock price of Zoom to figure out what kind of risk on mood is there in the world markets. But this is what the US markets did in the session. Well, so about a 0.75% gain for the Dow. S&P and the Nasdaq did well too, and big tech. I mean, Apple, Zoom I call big tech now simply because it's amongst, I think, the 20 largest tech companies in the cloud companies in the US or some statistic like that. So all of those companies are doing very well, and that's lifting the mood in the US markets for sure. The mother market, it's very, very important to look at the US markets. Keep in mind, there's this chart on the Bloomberg terminal, which my producer Arjun fished it out for us. Look at that chart, which shows how the fear has just kind of slipped. Now, it's just taken a holiday, as the chart says. S&P 500, the fear and greed gauge has jumped to a record high from record lows. So the record lows in the early part of 2020 to record highs currently. It's almost as if people do not believe that there will be any kind of mishaps when it comes to the world markets or the US markets at least. Now, if that is indeed the case, then the risk on mood certainly stays for the time being. The fear of missing out is equally powerful as the fear of losing money. So Asia and SGX Nifty today, both of them will come up on your screen. I'm not saying there are massive gains being built in, but if selectively the Asian screen might be marginally lower or marginally higher, depending on what the individual indices have and what the US futures are doing, you still have the risk on mood prevalent in the markets. The SGX Nifty will come up on your screen next. And, it helps that yesterday's session was slightly different than the session day before yesterday. And I'll get to that why too. But first, the SGX Nifty, just to give you a brief indication of how we are poised to start today, flattish. But I dare say that yesterday's move, wherein the Nifty, and that's really the trade setup for the day. The fact that the Nifty managed to defend that level of 11,325 convincingly is very, very crucial. I think I read at least 3 notes, all of which gave credence to this band of 11,300 to 11,350, with 2 of the analysts saying that 11,325 was the crucial level. So defending this crucial level of 11,325 on Tuesday was a key thing, and that might just hold the index in good stead. And if the banks continue to outperform, then we may well have a rally on our hands today as well. But I do think that irrespective of what the Nifty does, bottom-up stock picking remains the order of trade for the next few days. The index may do whatever it does, but there are enough and more large cap actions out there as trends, as sectors which will do well, which you can bet on. And I do think that telecom stocks are set to gain further ground today, and therefore it may just aid sentiment. Remember, after that rally in May, we were waiting for June, July, a better part of August for these stocks to come out of the slumber. Now that the events are out of the way and the chatter around the price hikes imminent, you might well have some activity in these. But therefore, that just keep in mind, just before I get to stocks, I just want to mark what happened in the macro markets as well, which is the rupee and the bond yields. And I think what the Reserve Bank of India was doing, or what the Reserve Bank of India indicated via the OMO, had this big impact on both the currency and the bond yields. The rupee traded above 73. Which was quite stellar, really. This chart will show an inverted chart. Remember, that's the nature of the chart. But look at the number on the top of your screen, 72.87. We are trading above 73 levels after a really long time. So, what the RBI is doing is probably having some impact. The bond yields too had a sharp drop, I think 18 basis points, if I'm not wrong. So there is this, 0.175, right? Nearly 18 basis points at 5.94. So it is having the desired impact for the time being. It almost seems as if it's all upon the Reserve Bank of India to aid all markets, including the currency markets, the bond markets, and I dare say even the equity markets. But speaking of equity markets, as I said, what is important is to highlight the specific names. Now, Vodafone Idea is very, very important. Brokerages have said that they are not bullish on Vodafone. Almost everybody has said that we are probably edging towards a duopoly, etc., etc. But Vodafone Idea has announced a board meet on September 4th for fundraising. Now, if there are investors who put in money, and if Vodafone Idea believes that they might want to get in money in order to fund the process, which means that they inherently believe that they can survive. They're not folding up, and which is a good sign really from a Vodafone Idea's minority shareholder perspective. It's a trade or an investment fraught with risk, but you got to, you got to read between the lines at times, viewers. It's a very high risk trade or an investment, but it's interesting that a day after this AGR judgment has come, they've announced a board meet. In fact, on the same day, this announcement came in late last night. They're also getting money from the Indus Tower merger as well. So keep all of these things in mind. If they do the fiber assets deal, so etc., 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 there are a few things that you have to watch out for. So keep that in mind. Vodafone Idea becomes an important stock today. Now, aside of Vodafone Idea, ONGC was an interesting one because the numbers look better than what the street was factoring in. On the revenue side, not so much, but as has been the case with almost all companies, cost control and other factors chipping in, margins expanded compared to estimates, much better. 45.4% versus estimated 36.7%. Net profit at 496 crores versus net loss of 54.3 crores. So keep this stock at the back of your mind. Could be an interesting one in the session. I thought what INFOSYS said was maybe also a bit from a perspective of hiring US employees, but the fact that they are raising the head count onshore and in a large number is also probably indicative of the confidence that the big boy has in terms of how business will come in. Remember, the commentary from the IT stocks has been optimistic. I've written about it on our website as well, BloombergQuint.com. Do try and log in and read, search by my name, and you will get a story that I've written, which kind of lays out the points why IT might actually have a fairly decent outing going ahead. Do keep in mind, it's an important sector, and INFOSYS could be an interesting stock today. Last but not the least, I was talking about themes and pockets which are doing well. So aside of telecom, which is in focus, of course, do watch out for steel, HRC prices, etc., 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 which have been raised. There's a JP Morgan note today which speaks about the underlying strengths behind it. But I'm just focusing on the trade. Look at what happened yesterday. JSPL, Hindalco, Tata Steel, all of them had good price action and fresh long positions built in. The OI change was pretty significant. In fact, for SAIL, it was probably even more so. I've just brought out here the larger ones, but SAIL also was active. So steel stocks, metal stocks in general, and steel stocks in particular could be very interesting names to watch out for. So keep all of these stocks in mind. Just also, a lot of brokerages are turning bullish on mid-cap NBFCs and mid-cap banks. Macquarie, Sandeep Bhatia spoke about it yesterday on BloombergQuint. Axis Capital came out with a note which has got a couple of NBFCs. So do watch out. Mid-sized NBFCs and mid-sized banks could be interesting trades as well. So 2 or 3 pockets that all of us need to focus on. But yeah, telecom, arguably the most important sector of the day today. Let's see what happens to the prices. Happy trading, everybody, and thanks so much for tuning in.